everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Your Weird Week. Well, last week may have been weird on a number of counts, but we can't totally figure out what our cards fit with. I mean, there's a number of things that happened, and I'm going to go over them, but I'm not really sure. Maybe as I go over them, Mr. O can look at the cards and see if he can give me a little correlation. What do you think?
Okay, let me pull up my own notes and give me a moment.
And these are not in order of importance, just things that I noted from last week. Like, for example, UPS and Teamsters settled their strike. So, this is good for UPS. This is good for Teamsters. Apparently they've got, I think, a good contract, and we've avoided a strike fiasco. Delivery is getting messed up. It could just shortchange a lot of stuff in the economy. So that's a positive, and maybe that fits some of our cards. Number two, Rudolph Giuliani admitted making false statements against the Georgia election workers. He claims he did this just to move the case along, just to get through this part, but that, he wasn't really admitting to anything, although he admitted to it. Anyway, double speak city. Number three, Barbenheimer.
Yes.
The good news is it really rejuvenated the box offices for the flagging, motion picture industry, and also for all the movie theaters that have been losing money. Barbie and Oppenheimer themselves did really well.
Yes.
And of course, people went to see them together, which is really a rare kind of thing, I think, Number four, Donald Trump was indicted with 3 new counts in the classified documents case. Plus, they've added another person in on the whole thing. A maintenance worker now faces charges along with that other Trump employee, Walter Nauta. And Nauta is also, I think, facing additional charges in relation to what came down on Trump this week. So that's something that hit the news as well. The Feds added another 0.25% interest rate hike to the already pretty high interest rate figures. It's been the highest figures in 22 years. Hoping the Feds will be able to slow down now because supposedly inflation is really slowing. So they say. And finally, I don't know what else to add except storms everywhere. There's still serious weather. I'm not sure, the Southwest might be getting a little bit of a break. Our upper Midwest seems to be getting the best of at least the temperatures, but we've had some rather serious storms. We had 150,000 people out without power and double-digit people without power for a number of days. There's still 5,000 people without power as of today, Sunday.
A lot of people lost a lot of food and groceries to the bad temperatures. I personally have known a few people who were talking about it on their social media before their power died out.
So a lot going on, but when we look at our cards from last week, the Hermit upright, the Hermit is about knowledge and wisdom coming out. So, we could look at that as, maybe the Giuliani and the false statements, or Trump being indicted with 3 new counts. I almost think. The Six of Pentacles upright was the what we will find out or see, the mysteries.
6 of Pentacles?
Right. Yes. And so that's a little bit of give and take here. That has a little feel of the UPS and the, Teamsters solving their strike issues,
Okay, right.
It also maybe could play into the Barbenheimer effect with, the movie theaters recouping some of their losses and even some independent theaters becoming more optimistic.
But so far it sounds like nothing is terribly connected to each other thing.
I know. So card 3, the Hanged Man upright, is what perspectives need to be considered. And that's the Tarot of Opposition, so we can look at both sides of that. What do you make of that?
Were there things that gave up selflessly? Were there things that didn't? Was there lessons learned by certain people that maybe they could actually acknowledge, or were there people digging in kind of and
Well,
refusing?
giving up and sacrificing, probably the UPS and Teamsters had to make some
Negotiations.
negotiations. Always there's give and take there. So that's one thing. The other thing could be Giuliani having to admit, his charges so he could move the case forward.
That's probably one of the better interpretations there.
And, one could, I think those are probably the best.
Mhm.
Now, card 4, what is the overall impact? The Ace of Wands is upright. Well,
some of these things were really good for business.
clearly. The Barbenheimer thing was good for business. Of maybe some theaters think they're getting a fresh start again. But of course, the screen actors and, the writers are still on strike. And so, for goodness sakes, I don't know how long this could last for the movie theaters. They're going to really have to think outside the box pretty soon if no new material is going to be coming to them.
But UPS settling, coming up with a contract, that sounds good for business.
Yep, that's true. And the Ace of Wands, right? I was looking at something else here and I lost my thought. I guess that would be it. This could also be the beginning of... Oh, I forgot to mention something else. And I know it was in the news last week. I'm pretty sure it was last week. They're already setting barriers up in Georgia because they're expecting charges to come in the Georgia electors case soon. So, that Ace of Wands could be indicating that move, that things are getting ready to move forward. But I don't know. That might be a reach.
That's a long shot.
Yeah, definitely.
It is a little bit.
The way justice is moving these days, very slowly. So card 5, what could win the weird week? The 8 of Pentacles upright, which is kind of, we got to keep working, It's like, we got to keep working on the problems. So I don't know, what could win the weird week? UPS and the Teamsters settling. They worked it out. They worked hard and they made it happen before the strike deadline.
And you can't underestimate the effect that, maybe unions coming out on top doesn't influence other unions or other situations favorably. It's always possible.
That's really what we see. I think a lot of this may have involved this UPS Teamsters thing. It could have really messed up things at a time of, I wouldn't say turbulence, but things aren't really balanced and stable right now economically. Almost anything could probably send things into a tailspin at this point. So, I don't know, might have been a little off last week. How about we see what's going to be happening in this next weird week?
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay,
So,
let's go.
From the Twin Tarot Oracle deck, Banshee will pull a card 1, which is about our major focus or theme or tone for this weird week.
Yes, it's a double major arcana deck. We shall see if we get an upright or reversed card for next week's weird week. And of course, just because we didn't find out anything that fit, you guys can look over our cards and let us know what we may have missed in the world affairs.
Give us a write at this email that I'm going to paste right here, TFT Tarot for Today @gmail. You could also just leave a message on the YouTube video comments.
Get some discussion going.
We'd love to hear your thoughts because we know we're not always right. But we get some interesting things going on.
Results sometimes.
Right. I was thinking about our Brexit videos, which are our all-time winners.
All right. Ooh, it's reversed. Okay. Well, the major theme or focus for next week's weird week, or the tone, is the Star reversed. So...
just lay that right there.
Well. We go from some of the optimism of last week into some more kind of pessimistic thinking. There's something that's going to make people feel rather doom and gloomy, wondering about where whatever this event is or things that happen are, where this is going to take us.
You know what? Last week was probably some sort of mistake, more or less, because I think this is definitely what was going on last week in its own way, too. A lot of people talked about the sense of doom that seems to be strongly pervading, and the biggest part of that seems to be people really realizing that nothing can stop the climate from its runaway storms or the wildfires that are going on, or other things like that. Of course, there's always something else. There's the threats of wars.
Well, right. Nothing ever changes with the war for the better. We hear Ukraine's winning. We hear sometimes Russia's making inroads. Ukraine just bombed, seems to be bombing more inside of Russia proper. And so, this war is escalating in its own way.
Indeed. So, card 2.
Card 2 is what we will find out or see. The mysteries with Mr. O's
Secrets Tarot. I thought you were going to do the complete introduction like I did for you.
Well, I'm sorry. The Secrets Tarot, a deck he loves a lot.
Indeed.
This is the second one he's owned.
Mm-hmm. There we go.
Oh. Okay. Well, let's see what you get with the Secrets Tarot. What we will find out or see. Please let us know the secrets. What is it? Oh.
Well, I think we're not going to find out much. I think we're going to be distracted by too many possibilities. Or maybe what we find out is that there's just a lot of things going on that maybe are things we should know about. Maybe there are things that we are hoping on, that maybe each of them represents a specific area. And I'm not saying there's only 7, of course, but the idea that we realize we need more than a couple of solutions or more than a couple of new ideas or something new to kind of, help.
Well, in this era of misinformation and, misrepresentations, I can't help but wonder here, we're really doom and gloomy. Yes, I think we can both agree on that, whether it's climate or some other things. And here, I'm truly hoping that something, whatever happens, whatever event is making us doom and gloomy in the week ahead, is not going to allow people's imaginations to get the better of them, to be just running off on weird theories or...
But this is saying that we will probably find this out, that a lot of people will give voice or thought or deed to random ideas that they feel fill this scenario. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, and I feel here, I was just thinking about something else I forgot to mention from last week that may actually maybe more fit our cards, maybe. But at any rate, here is just a scenario where I feel that what we will find out or see is that maybe too, we just can't seem to come together on what we should be doing right now to fix a situation.
A consensus.
A consensus. I wonder, there's talk again about a potential government shutdown in the U.S. because people are not cooperating there. And, they almost relish the idea of shutting down the government. So it could be something like that.
Isn't there some kind of dissension with some of the partners in NATO about whose roles and things like that right now? A little bit somewhere, I thought.
It could be.
So, or it could cover things like that developing.
Yeah, I'm not going to rule that out.
All right.
All right.
So moving on to the third card, I'm going to let Banshee start with it. It's the Tarot of Oppositions, and we use it to find out what are the other perspectives that we should consider or that we do need to
I will
consider?
grab it from you. I was trying to type the cards in, but
Oh,
yeah,
it would be terrible.
it would be. Is that a groan?
I'm not sure what it is.
One more shuffle, Mr. O. There's always one more. You go. Do I cut? No, you went first. That's right. So let's see what other perspectives need to be considered. Mr. O is giving them a healthy shuffle.
Well, I'm hoping to make them less stiff somehow.
They are tough. Oh boy. Oh boy. It's the Ten of Cups reversed.
And of course, with this particular deck, because it does show both the opposite and upright images of the card, we're kind of asked to look at this in a spectrum or a range of things that could be going on between the one pole and the other pole. So when we're talking about what we need to consider, it may be that there's perspectives that feel like it is worse than worse than worse, or some perspectives who feel that it's actually encouraging in some ways.
Well, what makes some people unhappy is making somebody else happy. You know,
Okay.
it's as if, you know, but that's the point. You know, it seems like people are far apart in working together, in harmonizing. You know, it just seems like because what some people want, others do not. And we can't seem, you know, we need to find that middle space here, you know, that space that maybe not everybody can be happy, totally happy with, but at least we can get some kind of, you know, what do you call it? Some kind of compromise,
A consensus.
a consensus.
There we go with that word again.
So what do you got now? Anything else with that? No.
Let me. I think there's just always losers and winners, and that of course seems to be the fact that maybe if we were able to recognize that there is a way to try to have a process so that everybody wins at least something, and so that there are no big winners or big losers. But that's the perspective that happens, is that we don't really have something that works for everybody. We have things that only works for some of us.
You know,
and of
we
course,
forget
I'm talking about government.
too that this is a very emotional card, and you know, often talks about interpersonal relations and how people get along, but it's also a 10, and it's a cup, and it could be about wish fulfillment, or you know, fulfillment of some goal, some dream, some objective. And with it reversed, it seems like we are a long way off from that, but that doesn't mean it cannot still be obtained. We have to find, you know, the way to do it, the way forward.
They're each like the pinnacle to some degree of their own value, you know, the one being, you know, sort of a sense of the best unconditional love, and then the other being the best of the unconditional sadness of no love. And so where is that middle part, or can there be a middle part?
Card 4, what is the overall impact?
And that comes from the Healing Light Tarot.
Yes, which is my deck. And which one of the cards is getting beat up? They're slippery. All right. Okay, so the overall impact, this is really interesting, all things considered here. It's the 9 of Swords reversed, Mr. O. So what is the overall impact? Somehow people become less anxious after all of this?
Well, there are some healing elements about the 9 reversed.
There are.
A lot of times I like to take it a little bit to the point of saying that, you know, you have to decide what you really can take in when it comes to, you know, the woes around you. That a lot of us want to be responsive to people we know who have pain, but at some point, you know, the overall impact may have to be that some of us have to, you know, kind of make sure we're taking care of ourselves, or to insulate ourselves in a way. And, you know, we spoke about, you know, this 10 of Cups maybe being a further vibration of the 9 of Cups, the wish fulfillment thing I think was mentioned. Maybe this 9 of Swords is a further elevation of the 8, that sense of containment. Only this is taken to the sense of, no, we truly are kind of putting up, you know, some amount of an insulation between us and the woes of the world. And maybe that's the overall impact. Maybe a lot of us are just going to say, I can't deal with this right now. I just really need to do for myself.
Bingo. But just that line.
Do for myself?
Well, you know, that they want to insulate themselves.
Yeah.
And this is my fear, you know. The 9 of Swords has a healing element and component to it when it's reversed. But I look at the cards and the way we were kind of leading here, and I think leading up to this moment and seeing the 9 of Swords reversed here, I feel like, Mr. O, that maybe instead of tackling this issue head on and trying to fix things, there are people who are pulling back and saying, I'm done with this, you know. There's nothing that can fix this. You know, I think, for example...
That kind of comes a little bit in those two.
I think, for example, for people who won't vote, you know, they don't vote in elections, and so therefore, you know, they're saying, no, you fix this. Or it's unfixable, and I'm not going to deal with this situation as it's set up. That's just an example of what I'm talking about here. What I think this is that people will, the overall impact of whatever this is going to make people feel kind of more hopeless, but you know, they're so insulated from it. They're so into insulating themselves from it. They really can't see the problem. They can't see the problem because they don't want to see the problem.
And of course, that's, you know, paying over attention to our social media or anything that is so distractive on that level. You know, streaming TV shows and movies and things. Going to see Barbie numerous times. All right.
We only saw it once.
I know. And it was great. And
it was great escapism.
Yeah, but it actually had a message about things that maybe are peripheral to some of what we're talking about here. But at any rate, let's go on to our final card.
Our final card.
What could win, or maybe not, the Weird Week.
And Mr. O will be using his Global Fusion Tarot for that.
It's the Global Fusion Intuitive Tarot.
Oh, thank you.
And we're looking for, you know, a sign of strategies or where the outcomes.
A sign of hope.
Indeed.
Wouldn't it be wild if we got the star up right there? I know. Careful what I ask for. If we do, you can thank me. It's not going to be there.
And it's the Knave of Swords, or the Page of Swords, if you will.
Upright.
And it's upright.
That's kind of good. That sounds like negotiations. That sounds like diplomacy, maybe. That sounds like communications, open lines of communications. I like that. Maybe I'm wrong about this, and maybe things will start to open up as people come to their senses more. So maybe when we recap, we can take a look at all of this in retrospect. But what do you say there, Mr.
Well, when I look at that, I see basically somebody who is really trying to draw people into the sense of a consensus, the sense of maybe tact and diplomacy. So it's kind of follows along with most of the things that we have been talking about. And whether this represents an idealization of a person or thing or situation, that agency that is responsible for that or not, this is really saying maybe that rather than trying to hold back, maybe we all need to ply forward a little bit like that, graceful energy of the Page of Swords, and instigate ourselves gently into the idea of what if we could do better, or how can we do better.
Well, it's interesting. I may backtrack on some of my thoughts here, but not pretty much the beginning cards. Let's take a look at this again and try to put it together. The major theme or focus seems to be something that kind of shatters our sense of hope. It's the star reversed, and we're concerned about our futures. We're concerned about where things are headed in a particular situation. We have a lot of worries or feeling, it also might be that our energy is sapped, I could see a lot of things going on here. People having to clean up messes from storms, the storm damages that just seem to be relentless, the heat that seems to be relentless.
From a metaphysical point of view, people who maybe have been trying to look at the stars or look at modalities to express hope or healing, and they too maybe are just not getting, the right message or the message that they're looking for.
And the other thing that this could relate to, I'm thinking of star reversed, is maybe the continuing strike, in Hollywood here as well. They are stars after all. And maybe that just still there's a lot of pessimism and no movement forward.
So what about that second card then, the mysteries? The things
well,
that we
the second
may
card,
find
the
out.
mysteries, is that whatever happens here, whatever gives hopelessness and despair, and you know what? We can't also, I should say this too, we can't rule out what's going on with the Trump indictments, because especially when I go here, I see something that might be some out of control misinformation, or just letting people letting their imaginations run amok. And that can happen even with the climate too, people taking things out of perspective one way or another.
Right. Traditionally the Seven of Cups in this position does really look like a scattering of a mental imagery that maybe has non-responsive, but in fact dissonant thoughts between them.
I mean, this, what we'll find out or see, this might speak to rumors, to gossip, to people just spreading, information for their own purposes. And I look at this here and I, all those cups, and I think of all the different stories that people could tell.
Yes.
So I don't know. What is the overall impact over there? We do have the
Ten of Cups reversed.
Ten of Cups reversed.
From the Tarot of Oppositions. And the idea is that it isn't necessarily all of one or the other. It could be a blending of either of those. And, with the Ten of Cups reversed, maybe there is a profound sense that we feel unloved, or we feel that we're unable to be reached emotionally or unable to reach others emotionally, versus the sense of an overwhelming unconditional love, or sense of a higher love for humankind, or the world. And is the truth somewhere in between, that maybe there's just not enough of us that have the one over the other, that there's too many people in that mushy middle who aren't able to make a difference because they don't have an emotional attachment to these things?
I could also look at the Ten of Cups as a sense of, especially since we have to look at both sides of this, the battle between those who are willing to be kind and altruistic to those who are not. Who are more angry, who are more greedy, who don't have the best interests of others at heart, versus those that have the best interests of others at heart. Also, just this idea that, what makes some people happy makes other people unhappy and stuff like that. When I think about this here too, I want to go back for a moment, Mr. O, because there's another thing here. We feel this pessimism and this gloom. Is it possible that what we will find out or see is that actually people will try to come up with a bunch of different ideas for solutions to the problem? I mean, that's possible too. This is really more of a neutral card than, I think, totally outright negative.
You're right.
Yeah.
I guess you're right.
So I don't know. But here we have this great divide. And this is, I think, where some creative solutions have to come in. And in other words, what makes, let's say, the Screen Actors Guild happy will not be making the movie studios, or the corporate heads happy. What makes the corporate heads happy is certainly not, to keep them on strike. That's what it sounds like. So it's really discouraging, the whole thing.
Some of the most profit-making venues have been related to entertainment and travel. And
Right.
what I have heard is that these companies are under a lot of pressure to recoup all of the money that they lost during the pandemic, because nobody was going to Disney World, or nobody was traveling to France or Tokyo or things like that. And so this may account for some of those kind of ideas there.
Well, and speaking of those industries, travel and airplane and other things, everybody is being affected by our climate crisis. So many flights have to be canceled. Some of the flights are experiencing really heavy turbulence from some of the winds and things that are going on. The fires, all of that. Let's face it, major sporting events and things had to be canceled or postponed due to, wildfire smoke and stuff. So, yeah, it's hard to recoup losses when the environment also is working against us. And card 4, the overall impact. Well, I'm thinking about this more and more, and I can't help but wonder if this isn't a case where we will be able to finally kind of wrap our heads around this more. Maybe the idea here is that we will find ways to ease some of our fears and anxieties by facing up to them, finally, and putting to bed some of the rumors and the things that simply aren't true.
Although upright, it doesn't always look very welcoming. Reversed, it is more a card of healing. And it could be a sense, too, that people have to pull back a little bit into themselves to really begin that healing process. But there's no reason to think that this couldn't have that overall impact for more people.
And ultimately, what could win the weird week is, just getting down and talking it out, for one, and really trying to dialogue and listen to each other, as opposed to out shouting each other.
And it's the Page of Swords, and it sort of has a good essence of negotiation or diplomacy about it, and maybe clear thinking, and maybe being able to be graceful under pressure, as they say.
This does smack to be something possibly related to strike
Strikes.
negotiations or other types of negotiations, legal negotiations, for example. So I'm not going to rule out some of the legal stuff either. And I'm
Right.
definitely not ruling out the climate change, seeing some of the damage even Washington, D.C. has suffered, recently from high winds and whatnot. So I guess we're just going to have to see again how this is going to play out when we come back for another episode of Your
Your
Weird
weird
Week.
week.
Thanks, everyone. We will see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.